if we take out the 17.5-ish low here, there's not a lot of support until you get down to 13 to 12,000, which is my high-end target for Bitcoin.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Daily Crypto. Today we have Gareth Soloway with us, who is going to discuss about the current situation of Bitcoin and why he still thinks it's headed towards 12,000. But before we get into the video, let's see where the fear and greed index is at today. Currently the FNG index is at 20, down from yesterday's 24. This shows that investor sentiment is shifting to extreme fear as Bitcoin isn't looking good in the short term. As of recording this video, Bitcoin and Ethereum are trading for 19,200 and 1,630. With that out of the way, let's get started with the interview.
I do think there will be more rallies in this bear cycle. I think this is going to turn out to be one of the longer bear cycles that we've experienced in a long, long time, mainly because if you look at the past bear markets, they've been shortened because of the Federal Reserve printing money, right, and stimulating, and the government stimulating. So I think that without that, it puts us in a kind of a serious situation that this could be an extended bear market. Now, a bear market is never fun, but it does offer opportunities. And I do think you will get multiple big rallies, 5, 10, even 15% rallies from low pivots. But again, it's going to be a stock picker's market, and you got to be nimble.
Gareth believes this bear market will last longer than what we have seen in previous cycles, and we will also witness more relief rallies. Even though a bear market sounds scary, it is the best opportunity one could avail if they're a bit smart and patient.
Yeah, I actually, so end of year, I think worst case, we're going to 3,400. So, I mean, I don't mean to be the bearer of potential negative news here, but if we actually just take a look at this chart, this is the S&P chart, the S&P 500, you can see that massive rally that you were just talking about, that bear market rally. And then look at how quickly we've given it up in less time. Now we have hit some support right in here. You can see these little pivot points. So this does mean that there is a chance we could get a short-term bounce here. But I'm still in the camp that I think, thinking about what the Fed is doing, how they're now unloading their balance sheet, they're raising interest rates, and they're likely going to raise at least by another 50 basis points in September. I think that you could, by year end or early 2023, retest the March or February 2020 highs right here before that COVID dip. So that's my target. And again, end of year, early 2023.
Some might call it absurd, but Gareth is someone who isn't afraid to talk about the worst case scenario. He says it is very likely that the Fed increases rates this September once again, which will cause the S&P 500 to drop more. As we know, Bitcoin and the stock market are somewhat interrelated, due to which Bitcoin could possibly fall to $3,400 in late 2022 to early 2023, according to Gareth.
So I do think, just like we saw a jobs number that came in a little bit better than expected, kind of in that Goldilocks range, I do think you're going to see a continued kind of relaxation of the CPI numbers. And I think that's going to give the Fed that ability to say, hey, listen, we're still going to keep the pedal to the metal. We're still going to do 50 basis points in September. But I think you're going to see the economy weaken more and more towards the end of the year. And they're going to back off to the point where my guess is only another 25 basis points into year end. Now, the problem here is, number one, that's going to be viewed as very bullish for risk assets in the near term, until we slip into a recession. And the market and all the investors out there, they look around and they say, okay, Fed, we're in a recession. Come get us out of this now. And the Fed's going to say, well, it's not a depression yet, so we're not going to, with inflation still at 4, 5, 6%, we are not going to print, and that's going to freak the markets out. The market is so addicted to knowing that the Fed is like the parents, right? And they have this little kid, and they're, the kid falls, and the parents kind of just catch them. But at some point, the Fed is going to be hand-tied here, handcuffed, and I think that point is coming late this year, early next year.
Since people are accustomed to the Fed hiking rates to temporarily save the economy, Gareth says they're going to keep believing in this until the Fed decide to not print more money, since the economy is not in a depression yet.
Yeah, so I mean, today is definitely, on a technical basis, not a great situation. Now, I will give Bitcoin credit, right? We've seen the dollar continue to ratchet up day after day after day, and Bitcoin was just going sideways. So you could actually say, okay, Bitcoin was holding up. But I look at today's up move in the dollar as potentially the straw that broke the camel's back with Bitcoin. It's just so much pressure from a rising dollar and risk assets. I mean, we've seen the stock market rolling over, and Bitcoin for the last 10 days or so has just gone sideways. So it was
Yeah.
almost inevitable if the dollar was going to keep going up, that at some point we were going to break down here. And you can see a nasty red candle here. Now
Yeah.
we do have potential support coming in around 17.5. That's going to be a big level. That's the June low. But my guess is that could be where we're headed at this point. But again, I was optimistic the last few days, looking at Bitcoin holding up and holding up for multiple days. And today's kind of like the wind coming out of the sails, if you will.
Since Bitcoin broke the 19,000 support, the next key level is 17,500, which will decide where Bitcoin goes from there on. If we break below 17,500 too, Gareth's prediction of Bitcoin going to 10 to 12,000 will start to seem even more strong, as there is not a lot of support in between.
I do think there's a chance of a flush, and I think the key here is understanding there's a few different things that are mixing. Now, if we take out the 17.5-ish low here, there's not a lot of support until you get down to 13 to 12,000, which is my high-end target for Bitcoin. And the kicker here is we have to remember there's still 150,000 Bitcoin, I think, that from Mt. Gox that could be unloaded at any one time. That's a lot of Bitcoin, especially when you're at these lower prices for pressure. In addition, I think you have to be very aware that at some point we're going to get news from the judge in the Ripple case. How is Gary Gensler going to say that, all these other coins are securities? What rules do they have to kind of abide by? And I think all of these combined with a strong dollar leave Bitcoin and other cryptos very vulnerable to kind of one of those bigger quick flushes that could take us down to that level. So I do think that level is a huge bounce opportunity. I don't know if we'll get there before we get down to, we get the Fed coming in here in late September, but I think it is a possibility.
There could be multiple events that could lead to Bitcoin collapsing to 12 to 13,000. Perhaps one of the most important events in the short term is the unloading of 150,000 Bitcoins by Mt. Gox, because when they sell, investors will panic out and sell all their crypto. Another one is the decision for Ripple lawsuit. If the court declares XRP as a security, then all other cryptocurrencies will be labeled as securities too. This could trigger mass panic in the market that could potentially lead to a massive sell-off.
I think there's still that potential that you could see some upside in Ethereum in the near term. And interestingly enough, the chart has a potential breakout here just above this downsloping trend line. So you can see that and by the way, this is really interesting because what we've seen in Bitcoin is that the low from basically 10 days ago was already breached. But you can clearly see that Ethereum has actually moved above this trend line and is well off of these lows. So to me, I look at that as a short-term relative strength indicator versus Bitcoin specifically. So I think that, again, there's a lot of hype. I think what Ethereum is doing is awesome. I think it's the right move here. And I think ultimately that in the near term, you could see some price pressure to the upside, maybe even retesting the near highs here of 2,000 on Ethereum. But again, I would just caution and say that depending on the regulation we find out about, that would be a concern, that would be a risk factor that you'd want to be a little careful over the next multiple months holding on to a ton of Ethereum.
While Bitcoin doesn't look too great on the charts, Ethereum looks like it could have a small rally to the upside because of the merge hype. Gareth says if we don't see Bitcoin make an impulsive move to the downside, Ethereum could touch 2,000 level. Thank you for watching. Do you think Bitcoin is going to 10 to 12,000 like Gareth says? Make sure to drop a like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss new uploads. See you guys in the next video.